Well, I think we've got everybody in that we need to have in this morning. So good morning again, Year 9s and Year 10s, and welcome to the first of our career snippets for this term. So I'm really pleased to welcome, we've got Nicki here from the Army, who's going to talk to us a lot about some of the opportunities that are available to you, some of the different pathways and routes. I know that as an organisation as big as the Army, there is a huge range of different pathways, and sometimes it can seem really overwhelming. So I'm just going to hand across now, and thanks ever so much for coming to join us this morning.
Cool. Thank you, Gareth. Are you right just to start the slides, please? Fab. Thank you. Hopefully you can all see the slide and hear me. So good morning, everyone. My name is Corporal Nikki Kirkman. Just a little bit about myself then. I've been in the Army just over 5 years now. My job is a currently recruiting job, so I work between Salisbury and Aldershot, and my job day to day is basically recruiting for the Army. When I'm not recruiting there, my job is a human resource specialist, so I administrate the Army, and I've worked alongside the Royal Logistics Corps mainly. All right, so this presentation, we just talk about Army careers. So the four main things the Army does then: we protect the UK, we prevent conflict, deal with disasters, and fight the enemy's nations. So I'm going to play you a short video, and it just explains to you about some of the roles the Army offers.
When you think of the Army, what comes to mind? Guns, tanks, explosions? But this is just one component of a large organisation. The Army is made up of different moving parts. Each is like a cog in a machine, able to adapt and work in any environment, in any emergency, in the face of any threat. We split our many job roles into 7 main career areas. Logistics and support, feeding our troops and transporting equipment, vehicles and supplies over land, sea and air. Engineering, mapping, designing and constructing buildings, repairing vehicles, equipment and aircraft. Intelligence and communications, setting up communication networks, intercepting messages, analysing intelligence. HR and finance, managing pay and accounts, organising, giving legal advice, policing. Medical, taking care of the health of our workforce, both people and animals. Music, playing for ceremonial duties, and also in ensembles and bands. And finally, combat, including our aircraft, artillery, armoured vehicles and infantry. Whether on a battlefield, on a peacekeeping mission, or responding to a natural disaster, all the different parts of the Army move together to ensure the Army can work anywhere. A job in the Army is a job that makes a difference.
Right, so as you see in the video there, it describes some of the roles you can do. So there's over 100 different roles in the British Army, and they broke them down to 7 different groups. So on the slide, you've got the following: your combat, your medical, intelligence and communications, logistics and support, HR and finance, music and engineering. So just to give you an example of one job role in each category, so you've got an idea of what the Army can offer you in terms of jobs. So you could be a tank crewman, so you'd be firing and driving Challenger 2 tanks. You could be a combat medic, similar to like a paramedic. You could be a cyber engineer. You could be a driver. You could be in the Royal Military Police. You could be a musician. You could be a vehicle mechanic. Okay, so those are just 7 different examples. Like I said, there's over 100 different roles in the British Army. Next slide, please. So this is where we talk about requirements. So the Army will take you on if you come out of school with no GCSEs, or you stay on after school and do your A-levels. So again, just to give you an example of job roles you can do with GCSEs then. So if you have no GCSEs when you leave school, okay, you can be an infantry soldier. So that's like a frontline troop or you're a war fighter. Okay, so you're the first ones into battle. You run around with lots of kit and equipment, firing your weapon systems. You're very highly trained. You need to be quite fit. If you come out of school with 2 to 3 GCSE grades 3, okay, you could do my role. I'm a human resource specialist. I administrate the army to deal with people's pay, their leave, all their personal details. If you come out of school then with 2 to 5 GCSE grades 4 to 5, a lot more jobs are going to be open to you. So you could be working in like bomb disposal, for example. And if you go on to do your A levels, you could be a nurse. So they're just a few examples of job roles you can do. All right, next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to talk about the route into the army then. So you could join the army from the age of 16 up until 36 years old. So if you want to leave school and you don't want to go into further education, that is an option for you guys. What would happen then? You would go to the Harrogate Foundation College, and that is a mixture of education as well as all your military training. So if you come out of school and you haven't got your maths and English, you'll gain that through Harrogate. You can get a public service qualification and even a Duke of Edinburgh award. As well as that, then you do your military training. So that is keeping fit. That is, going out on what we call exercise. So being in a field for a number of days, you'll be eating, sleeping, you've got all your kit and equipment, and you'll be doing all the tactical maneuvers in the field. Also learning about sort of the military in general. So learning about the rank structure, you could go on a few trips away to like Belgium, learn about previous wars. You could do some adventure training in Wales, and you'll be doing things like climbing, kayaking, hill walking, that sort of thing. If you decide to go on to like college or whatever, you can join the army and after that, and you can be a little bit older. So between the ages of 17 and 5 months up until the age of 36, you go to a different place. Okay, it would either be sort of Purbright or Winchester, and you would complete 14 weeks basic training. The reason why it's shorter than Harrogate, which is the 23 or 49 weeks, is because you don't need to have any education in there, because you would have probably gone to college already. So it's a bit shorter, so you scrap the education and just do the military side of things. Once you finish that basic training, okay, that is you fully qualified as a soldier, you go on and then learn your trade. So you're always a soldier first in the army, but everyone has a trade alongside it. For example, I'm a human resource specialist. So once I completed my basic training, I spent a further 14 weeks at a place called Winchester, where I learnt my trade. If you want to be a gunner in the artillery, you'll probably find yourself at Larkhill for about 15 weeks. If you wanted to be an infantry soldier, for example, you could spend a number of weeks up at Catterick learning that. Okay, so those are a couple of examples of how you get into that. Once you're in your trade training, we're really big on apprenticeships. So you'll undertake an apprenticeship relating to your job role. So I did a business administration one. If you're looking at a combat one, then you'll be doing public services. If you're looking at engineering, okay, you could get like bricklaying qualifications, electrician qualifications, all sorts, and it's all recognised in civilian streets. When you leave the army, hopefully you can get yourself a job with the qualification that you got through the army, and then actually fully qualified as a soldier and in your job role. So you'd be based at a regiment, okay, it could be 500 people there, and that is where you live and work. Next slide, please. Okay, benefits of being in the army. It's a great employer. Okay, so I've got a list here of all the benefits of being in the army. Okay, great pay. When you're in training, okay, your pay starts on about £16,000 a year, but it quickly goes up most years and on promotion. So after 5 years, you could be on 30 grand. That's very achievable. You get 38 days annual leave a year. Okay, that is a lot compared to a lot of other employers. Okay, so you get lots of time off, which is what people want, right? You get subsidised food and accommodation. So food's so cheap. I pay about £2 per meal, and my accommodation is similar to like a uni accommodation. I pay about £80 a month for that. So you can save loads of money on your food and your accommodation. If you wanted to buy your own house in the future, that's very realistic. We're very big on a sport and adventure training. So essentially we get time off work. We get paid to go off to different countries and do all this sport and adventure training. For example, I'm about to go to France in 2 months' time. Okay, I'm paying about £125, and that includes everything. So that'll be my flights, my accommodation, my food, and all my sort of ski hire, ski lift. I'm not going to pay a penny, and I'm going to learn how to ski. Also, we do like rugby, football, netball, you name it. We do every sport in the British Army. Adventure training, okay, that's like your skiing, snowboarding, climbing, kayaking, mountain biking. You can do it in the UK, but there are trips overseas. Okay, you could find yourself France, Germany, doing all these different trips. Okay, pension, really good pension. We don't pay into it, so the money we get in our pocket is all for us, and the army pay you in the background your pension. So when you leave, you're pretty much sorted. It's good job security. So if you think, COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs. You're not really going to have that in the army. You initially get a 12-year contract. You can leave beforehand if you want to, and it can also get extended to 22 years plus. Free medical and dental care, which is good. We don't have to wait ages for an appointment. We get free prescriptions. If you need a fill-in or any dentistry, that's all free as well. We get a driving license. So if you leave school and go straight to Harrogate and you haven't got a license, okay, the army are going to pay for that. Okay, so that might save you about £800 in lessons, and you can get other licenses out of that. Your Land Rover, your HGV, trailer, and then, like I said before, we are quite big on qualifications. So you do get a lot of apprenticeships, or if you wanted to get different qualification, for example, I'm looking at doing maybe like a mental health sort of awareness level 3, that can be funded through the army as well. Travel, I've been to I've lost count now, about 7 different countries in 5 years, and I'm about to go overseas to Cyprus next month. And then, like I said, I'm going to France skiing in March. So there's loads of opportunity to go away, not just with sport and adventure training, but like deployments, exercises, whatever they offer you, you can jump at it and get on that trip. And a lot of them are free. Free gym, that's going to save you gym membership, about £30 a month. You can use the gym during work hours. So I cut away at 4 o'clock and I go to the gym for an hour and a half, for example. Working hours, okay, it does vary depending on what job role you do, but most of the army work Monday to Friday. We get a late start on a Monday, so we start at 10. On a Wednesday, we have a sports afternoon. So if you want to do a bit of swimming or golf, okay, that's counts as a sport. You can go off and do that at like midday, for example. And then Friday's a half day as well. So your working hours, it's not a lot. So those are like the main benefits to the army. And then just a quick explanation on like sort of skills you need for the army. So I would say the main ones in terms of sort of going to apply for the army, you need to be motivated. You need to want to be there, because your application, it doesn't happen overnight. It could take 6 months. So you need to stay motivated, keep yourself fit. There is a requirement for fitness in the army. It's not a lot. It depends on what job role you do, but it's quite a basic fitness standard. And the army will get you a lot fitter once you're in. So physically and mentally strong and motivated, I would say, to at least get into the application stage. Once you're in the army and you go through basic training, the army are going to teach you lots of things. Okay, so you're going to learn how to be on time. You're going to have to listen to instructions. You're going to have to take in information. So even if you're not up to scratch now, the army will definitely put you into shape in terms of fitness and getting yourself together as well. So that is pretty much the end of the presentation. If you guys want to like fire any questions away, so you can ask your teachers and then they can like ping a message on here. It could be about anything. It could be about job roles, the application process, what army is like. Just ping it in. But while you're writing that, I'll just sort of briefly explain my journey and how I got into the army. So I did actually go to Sarum Academy for a little while, but then I did move schools. Then I went on to Wiltshire College because I had a couple of GCSEs when I left. I wasn't the brainiest, but I didn't leave with nothing either. So I studied public services for a year. I studied health and social care for a year. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And by that point, I was 18 and still didn't know what job I wanted to go into. Had a couple of jobs in sales. I'm from Salisbury, so I've worked, in PC World, worked in Carphone Warehouse, which are all Salisbury. Then decided it wasn't for me. I didn't want to hit sales targets. Didn't want to have to work weekends. All I know is I wanted to travel. And I was quite sporty. I love rugby. I love football. And I thought, you know what, I'll go for the army. And my biggest fear was like not being fit enough. But you know what, I was probably one of the fittest at the time when I joined. So I kind of delayed things because of that reason. And I've definitely not looked back, even if I joined the army a little bit later. So I joined when I was 20, but you can join all the way up to 36 and you can join when you're 16. So it all depends on sort of where you're at with stage of your life, it doesn't matter now that you don't know what you want to do, but potentially further down the line you're going to realize if that's 16 or that's sort of 36, you can still get in.
Nikki, thank you so very much indeed. So yeah, tutors, if you've got any questions, please use the chat to ask them. There's just one thing that I actually had from hearing your story. I think actually you got across a lot of information there, Nikki. One of the things I was curious about is, do you know roughly, I mean, you were talking about, or the video was talking right at the start in terms of what the army does. And I guess most people tend to think about combat, but it also kind of stressed, what you do from a peacekeeping point of view and what you do from a natural disasters point of view. Do you know roughly what sort of percentage of the army's time, how, is it mostly in combat? Is it mostly doing those roles? What do you end up doing mostly these days? Because I know that the dynamics of the army have changed.
I mean, there's a lot of soldiers in combat roles, but we're not presently at war. So a lot of the time we're preparing for war, if you're a combat troop. So they do exercises and deployments, on the Salisbury plain, which is on our doorstep, or you could be overseas in Estonia, or we do jungle training in Belize, and you just keep it on top of your soldiering skills. But a lot of us have trades. Like if I wasn't recruiting right now, I'm a human resource specialist. So I'll be dealing with people's pay every single day. There's always vehicles that break down. If you're a vehicle mechanic, your day-to-day job is going to be fixing vehicles.
Nikki, thank you. I think we're going to have to gently leave it there because we've got first period, which is creeping up in 3 minutes time. I'm really, really grateful for you giving your time up today, and thank you very much indeed for your presentation. I'm just going to kind of open it up here that if anybody does have any questions that they don't want to ask within tutor time, please see your tutor or come and see myself. I'll make sure your questions get passed on to Nikki, and I'm sure she'd be happy to come back to you directly. But Nikki, thanks once again.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. All right, have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.